IFLR once again. I'm a big wig. Yeah. Let me they run things up.
Hello and welcome to Big Wig. Big Wig is a series that examines the life of lawyers who are not into litigation. Lawyers that have made a name for themselves in the niche area of the law that they have excelled in.
I think a good lawyer, a successful lawyer, there are rewards. But I think giving somebody a title, especially in the context of Nigeria, where sometimes it becomes almost a title, I think that senior advocates should be compensated for skill, compensated for hard work, compensated for reaching the top of the profession. We also need to understand that commercial lawyers who have also done well merit recognition.
Yeah. Can't even notice. Run down the moves, I got this. I love the practice.
Welcome to another episode of Big Wig, the Big Wig. This week we get to meet and talk to perhaps one of the most recommended big wigs in the business. He's been described as very welcoming and warm. Over 35 years experience in corporate and commercial practice and has been involved in the negotiation of complex commercial agreements for a wide variety of transactions. He's the chairman and one of the founding partners of Gbenga Oyebode. Ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome Gbenga Oyebode.
Thank you.
Is this what you've always wanted to do? I spoke to one or two big wigs and they said law happened. But did you always want to be a lawyer?
I actually think so. I didn't get here by accident. I think it was what I looked forward to do, and it's what I've been doing for easily 40 years, and I enjoy every minute of it.
You've kicked back now, you've sort of retired from major things. What do you do now?
I don't like that word retirement.
Okay.
So I stepped back from being chairman of the firm, and what they say is of counsel. Of counsel just says that I remain a part of the firm, and when clients need my services, I will still come in and do the work that I need to do. But I think that it's important for all of us to think of how we reinvent ourselves and what are the things that come naturally to us. And after you've been doing something for 40 years, it's time to look at what else is out there.
That's right.
And so the law remains, my passion. It remains that thing that I've been doing all my life. I'm not walking away from it. I'm just looking for other opportunities out there.
Are there other opportunities out there for somebody with 40 years experience?
Oh, definitely. I tell people that everything that's happened to me has happened because of the law. Has happened because clients came into the firm, recognized what I was doing, recognized that I was good material for sitting on boards, and so will I walk away from that thing that actually set me up for the future? The answer is no.
I'm curious about how lawyers, how they get on board. Like, how do you work your way through these, mega corporations?
No, actually, it's very easy, very, very easy. And I've spent a lot of time mentoring and talking to people about opportunities and sitting on boards. And what I say to them, my standard line is, be the best at what you are doing. People recognize you for being the best at what you do. They don't recognize you as being a director material on the board. They recognize you as being, he's a great lawyer, he's a great consultant, he's good at what he does, he has people skills. And then they take a look at the board and say, we're looking for an independent director. Who's that person that we want to identify? Oh, they say there's this good lawyer that they know, ethically does all the right things. Great corporate lawyer, great litigator. They say, by the way, we do have an opening for that kind of person on our board. So you don't go out there saying to your advertising to say that, I want to sit on boards. But if you are great at what you are doing, actually that recognition will come, and you'll be surprised at how many boards you get invited to sit on.
There are people who look at people like you, your strides, and they seek a roadmap. so to speak. Maybe it happens in other cultures. Would you see yourself writing memoirs or a book on how to do this, or
Definitely. I think I would be. It would be a loss if I didn't put my thoughts, my experiences, the pathway in writing. Not necessarily for the next generation, but actually because we live in a society where people don't write. There's very little of contemporary Nigerian history and the lives of great men and women that's out there for the next generation to actually read and digest. And so for that reason, I've made a commitment to myself that I will write. There's a story to be told. Doesn't mean that everybody will like the story or will read it, but I think it...
but there's definitely
there is a story, and it would be great disservice if we didn't put those markers on the ground.
You're associated with Teach.
Yes.
Will you see yourself, doing some of that?
Look. Teach. So I'm chair of Teach for Nigeria.
Yes.
And I'm vice chair of Teach for All, which is a global body. For me, education. So why am I where I am today? It's because of education. My mother tells a story all the time that the only thing that she has to leave to her children is a great education and the prayers that she helps us with every day. My view is that we live in a part of the world where there's an education conundrum. There's education inequity and there's income inequality. How are you going to get past all these things? Is that the level playing field that we always tell people that we will present them with has to be through education. It's the only way out of poverty, it's the only way out of ignorance, it's the only way to create wealth and create value. And so when I look at, I'm passionate about education, I'm passionate about girl-child education, I'm passionate about the fact that in the country the size of Nigeria, that we're still not hitting the critical markers that people tell us about. That the indices that we see, total number, the highest number of children out of school. Those are the kind of things that we should pay attention to. The fact that our teachers are not fit for purpose sometimes in certain parts of the country, where people refuse to even do continuous training. So I think it's important that we pay attention to these things, and that's why I'm passionate about teaching particularly. There are all kinds of different levels of intervention around education. There's creating infrastructure, creating the schools, creating the classrooms, but we also have to remember that there must be teachers in these classrooms that will take the children along.
I hear these days when you hear the level of how bad teachers are, it's very disturbing. Earlier on we were sharing about the country and how things are declining. From where you sit, do you see, talking about elites and how we're all complicit, where does leadership come from then, especially as legal?
Look, I think one of the things that gets my attention is how everything seems to be upside down, and how sometimes it's extremely difficult to hold up a part of the civil society space that you turn a searchlight on and you don't find problems. But in the middle of all of that, one of the things that gives me hope is that Nigerian professionals, the youth of our country, continue to shine in literally all spheres. So there's almost no part of society outside, on the continent, around the world, that you do not find outstanding Nigerians who have studied in Nigeria. So as much as it is that I complain about the education system, I also recognize that this system, that a lot of us came out of this same system.
Absolutely.
We went to high school here, we went to university here. We may have thrived and succeeded, but 40 years down the line, I still see a pipeline of very, very energetic, very hardworking people who are committed to change, and who at very young ages are being successful. So when you look at immigration, for instance, the reason certain countries are taking our best and brightest, is because they see that they are capable.
There's something that they,
Exactly.
that they have from,
Exactly.
from here.
Yeah. So when you say Nigerian doctors and nurses are leaving, they pass all the requisite exams
When they
in
get
the jurisdictions that they're going.
Yes.
So there must be something to be said for our universities. The problem is we just don't have enough for the total number of people who are applying. And in the middle of all of that, we still have a problem in the country where people are standing up and are leaving. In droves, by the way. And so those are the kind of things that we need to focus on. They're the kind of things that, not just the elite, the political class, all of us need to put our heads together and say to ourselves that, whatever is making these young people leave, we do need to stop this. It's no longer drip, drip, drip. They're voting with their feet, and it's time to stop that.
When you look at the quality of lawyers that you guys employed when you started out, and what you have now, how does it compare?
Again, as I said, I'm pleasantly surprised. Look, over the last 40 years, one of the things that I have seen is the quality of Nigerian lawyers at the very top. So I would say to you, which is typical around the world, the top 10% of the class will always do well wherever they are in the world. So if you run a law firm that says we will only do first class and 2-1, what you tend to find is after a couple of years with us, they go off and do LLMs in the best schools in the world.
That's right.
It's actually funny. They say that the New York Bar is one of the most difficult exams in the world. We tend to find Nigerian lawyers who, after a master's degree in the US, pass New York Bar at the very first try. What that proves to me is that the quality is good, that our universities continue to produce great lawyers, and that we in law firms continue to train good lawyers. And so we just need to increase the numbers, such that it's not just the top 10% of the class, but maybe the 50% of the class meets those the criteria that's set. But I'm very, very happy with what I see, and those standards, by the way, have not dropped. And for me, that's a good sign.
You did mention it. You did say let's get more than that 10%, because the disparity between that 10% and the rest of it is so sharp.
It's a sharp.
and talking about the New York Bar, you are like a precursor of that whole trend. Why didn't you stay back? Or
there are a bunch of us at that time who decided we wanted to do a master's degree. The typical thing was that because we are Anglophiles, a lot of my friends went to the UK. A few of us went off to the States. And I think it was really that New World approach. People tend to think that the American legal system is a bit strange, but it isn't. It's common law based. Actually, American jurisprudence has left the rest of the world behind. You may argue about the different ways that they've pushed the envelope, but the reality is that they're thinking all the time about the Constitution, about commercial law, about how is law fit for purpose, which it must be. Very unlike us here, where we still have on our books English laws of 100 years ago. This is a system that continues to push the envelope for the good. And so I decided to go off to the US at that time. Went to the University of Pennsylvania, did my LLM, took the New York Bar, worked at White & Case. And my view was, look, if you have the opportunity, please do it. I tend to tell the story that I was in a hurry. I did everything I needed to do in a hurry. It was like, somebody had lit a fire under me. But my view of life was that if you have these opportunities, please just do what you have to do. But the real thing for me, that experience, was seeing how law firms were run, seeing how the systems worked. And I did both, worked in a law firm and in-house counsel. I worked for Gulf Oil in Houston and in Lagos, before the Chevron acquisition in those days. and saw how in-house counsel and law firms worked, and knew exactly what, for me, what I wanted to do thereafter.
What was the vision of Oyebode?
The vision was to be a world-class law firm, was to be a partnership-based law firm, was to be a full-service practice in a way that in the early 80s, the only real law firms in the country were family-run practices. People tended to assume that because the father was a great lawyer, his children would be the same. That lawyers were fungible. We know today that that's not true. And so for somebody that didn't come from a legal background, a family that had lawyers, today there are lots of us that had lawyers in my family. But the reality for me was that we needed to create the kind of law firm that I had worked in New York, that I had seen, that thrived around the world. And so that was the vision. And the only way you could do that was to create a platform for other people to come and to join. Today there are 19 partners in this firm. We're the biggest law firm in the country. But for me, it was understanding that that's the future. The future has to be that you create a platform for other people to come on board. This is not driven by family. My son wants to go to law school, but if he does go to law school, he's going to have to fight his way through it. He's not going to get a corner office just because he asks for it.
You already mentioned, I was going to ask if, you come from a line of lawyers, but you already mentioned, but you got the support that, because parental support for that is very important. Who did you look up to? I mean, yes, you ran through everything, but when you were growing up, starting out as a young lawyer, who was your...
It's funny, people ask me the question a lot. I have one name that always stands out, and it's Chief Chris Obubanjo. Okay. And why? Because as a young man in university in those days, this was the mid-70s, one of the things that I used to do a lot around, my mother was a very avid investor. So she bought lots of shares at the time during indigenization between 75 and 77 when companies were being listed. So I'd come home on holidays and she'd get all these annual reports. So I'd open these annual reports. And for some reason, there were a couple of names that were always consistent. He did the IPOs, he did the listings, he advised all the major companies. And by the way, he also sat on their boards. And I said to myself, this is the kind of lawyer that I would like to be. A man who built a successful practice, is recognized for his hard work. The major multinational clients in the country gravitate towards his firm, and then they have a lot of confidence in him where they ask him to sit on their boards. So didn't meet him for many years, by the way, but from a role model perspective, I always kept my eye on him. So today I tell young people seek out the mentors, and if you can't find how to engage with them, please use them as role models. Take a look at them and say, this is the kind of person I want to be. Keep an eye on what they do. And it doesn't have to be anybody that's living. Please read a lot about people that have gone in the past, but understand that there's not very much you're doing today that hasn't been done before. And there's a lot to learn from the lives of great people.
It's very difficult to find any successful commercial corporate lawyer today in Nigeria that does not have one sort of reference to Chris Obubanjo.
You'll be surprised. It's at least in my generation, I know lots of people that's where they started. Yes. They learned a lot at the feet of Chief, and they credit him.
Oh yes.
They credit him for that trajectory.
I spoke to George Etomi, Asue.
George, Asue, Udoma.
Yes.
The whole theory around, people tend to forget sometimes. Ojujuni Adefulu, actually started out, from Chris Ogbajo and Co. So I think it's important to give credit where it is due.
Did you like litigation at all, or it was just a question of, well, this is the line I wanted to, and since
I did a little bit of litigation at the beginning. Actually didn't mind doing it. What I didn't like about it was just the inefficiencies around the court system. I promise you, if we could have done it in a more efficient way, I would have stayed in litigation. But just because I just didn't think that this was an efficient way of doing business. A situation where you spend 10 years in court and you get all the way to the Supreme Court and all kinds of different interim orders and interlocutory orders and things that derailed from what you wanted to do. And very quickly said to myself, look, where are your skills best deployed? What do you do best? And because I'm a people person, I found that for me, building a network comes naturally. My ability to walk into a room and engage people in conversation. So what do great corporate lawyers do? That's what we do. Yes, we know the law, but you first have to convince the person. And before they give you work, they have to first like you. And sometimes that's a missing message that people tend not to see. You want to be the best at what you do. By the way, you do have to be the best at what you do, but you also need to have the skills that allow you to engage.
Yes. I don't know if it is non-communication, or if younger lawyers or young law students don't get to read about commercial law practice enough. But there is this mortal fear of litigation, amongst young lawyers. I remember that one of the things that I said to myself from the beginning when I was studying law was that I wasn't going to do practice litigation. I was just going to face my area and do more copyright matters. What advice do you have for young lawyers who are coming into practice?
Let me tell you, I think we should do it the way we do it here, which is we do a rotation for youth corpers. So people come with this same trepidation around litigation. It's too time consuming, they're on the road all the time, cases are always adjourned, they go to Ikeja, go to all these different courts, the court didn't sit today, so it's okay. Actually, you should make up your mind based on that. Let's do a rotation through the departments in the firm. So you do some corporate work, you do some capital markets work, you do litigation. After that rotation, if you decide that you don't want litigation, all well and good. But please don't make up your mind on the basis of anecdotal evidence. And what we tend to find, actually, if I were to admit, the lawyers I respect the most are people who have both skills, an ability to do litigation, an ability to come into a corporate meeting and engage the same way that some of us who, that's all we do. And so if I had to redo it all over again, I actually wouldn't leave litigation that quickly. I would have stayed. Doesn't mean that I would continue it, but I think that a deeper understanding of how litigation affects, litigation strategy, for instance, affects what we do on the corporate commercial side of a firm, so that you don't quickly rush to judgment. You understand that even when a client says to you, well, I'm going to go to court, you say to him, excuse me, let me tell you, let's sit down, let's see if we can reach a settlement. If we don't get to a settlement, let's go to arbitration, or let's go through mediation, because by the time we get to full-blown litigation, we need to understand that it's not going to be open and closed. It's going to take some time, and it's important that you know that.
One or two of the big wigs that I spoke to about, the privileges. There is an argument that for sanction. Do you feel that there should be some kind of reward too for people in corporate law?
Look. I mean,
Or the financial rewards are the
I don't even think it's about financial rewards, because the litigators too, at the very top of the practice, whether they are silk or not, get financial rewards. I would say that it's really about this fused bar that we have. So that's my concern. Look, in a fused bar where litigators become senior advocates of Nigeria, what you tend to then say is that not only are they the most senior lawyers, they're also reputedly the best lawyers. Now that's a problem. That's the only problem that I see. And look, you know, if you want to give somebody silk on the basis that as a litigator he's entitled to it, I have no problem with that. But please don't assume that the tradition, the English tradition of a barrister that says that a QC is a senior lawyer should translate in a fused bar to a senior advocate being more senior than somebody who's paid his dues as a commercial lawyer. Now, I have a problem with that. And I see it happen all the time. People tend to say, oh, but the financial rewards should be enough for a commercial lawyer. That's stating the obvious. I think a good lawyer, a successful lawyer, there are rewards. But I think giving somebody a title, especially in the context of Nigeria, where sometimes it becomes almost a title, I think that senior advocates should be compensated for skill, compensated for hard work, compensated for reaching the top of the profession. But we also need to understand that commercial lawyers who have also done well merit recognition. I tell people the story. So when my partner, Bankole Aluko, my co-founder at that time, became senior advocate of Nigeria, Justice Muri Okwala of blessed memory called me and he said, he prayed for me and said, congratulations, Bankole is made senior advocate. He said to me, unbeknownst to him, he was talking about my mentor, but he said, that senior solicitor of Nigeria, the kind that they didn't give Chris Ogubanjo, that's the one I pray that they give you. Now that was a deep signal to me, because all he was saying was that, by the way, those of you that don't get senior advocate of Nigeria merit your own recognition. And it's a kind of recognition that, somebody that I looked up to, has. Doesn't have it in a title, but has it in recognition.
Yeah. In fact, what the philosophy behind Big Wig is to, seek out the corporate lawyers who are at the top of the profession. Talking about a fused bar, would you rather we have like the English system where it's separated, or it is only that's where the tradition came from. Yes.
So this one that we've done is a mix, and I'm not sure that we're getting the best of it. Yeah. So the Nigerian Bar Association and the traditions of the Nigerian Bar Association and the traditions of the bar become the template for all of us, even though half of us don't go to court. Now, there's a misnomer in that.
Yeah, that's right.
On top of that is the fact that in this part of the world, we're not even changing. So the same thing that we've had for, since we continue it without a recognition of how does this thing affect, the way we operate. What should we do better? Isn't it time to reinvent the structure? Shouldn't we negotiate how these things should be done? And so for me, it's part of the concerns I have about the way we do things. We do them in this Ouija board way in which, something we've done over and over and over again. And we know that, by the way, the results we're getting aren't what we expect, but we continue to do them. And so it's time to actually sit back and say, what's the way forward?
What has kept your interest in the practice?
My personal philosophy of life is that life is a marathon, it's not a sprint. And that no matter how well you think you're doing, always recalibrate and almost start all over again. It's the only way that you can keep ahead of the game, if I can put it that way. And it's the only way you can stay relevant. Because there are, all kinds of different, the way we practiced in the 80s isn't the way we're practicing today, for instance. And millennials and Generation Z, they have a totally different approach to work. The pandemic has taught us that are we all going to go back to doing 5-6 days a week in the office, working 10 hours a day? It doesn't look likely. We may get back to our wicked ways, but it's not looking like that just yet. And I think it's part of the whole recalibration that I think all of us must do. So I stay focused on the objective. The objective is to keep ahead of the game, to remain one of the leading firms in the country, to have around me the best and the brightest that we can find in the marketplace, to be a destination for good legal work, for client satisfaction. And if you think you've achieved, what tends to happen is that somebody comes and overtakes you. So it keeps us on our toes, and we continue to do what we know how to do.
Technology has, democratized the space. In fact, it has actually expanded the limits of the law. How have you do you embrace it?
Oh, technology is the only answer to what we're doing. Look, I remember in the early 80s at White and Case. So before I left in Nigeria, I remember us using telex machines. And I got to White and Case and there were fax machines. And the fax machines were as big as today's photocopiers. Purring away and winding away, and you were rushing to grab your paper. They came on thermal paper, you tore it off the machine, quickly read what The reality is that it keeps moving. So in today's world, a few years ago, some of us thumbed our noses at WhatsApp. You couldn't send a legal document by WhatsApp. Today, you almost have no choice. The client says to you, "I'm going to send it to you by WhatsApp. You better, take it and read it, and save it." So I think that technology is a game changer. It makes us a lot more efficient by the way people are able to work from home. People are able to be, I know that my associates won't like it, but it's a 24/7 world out there. You send emails, you expect a response. You send messages, you expect a response. You're not, you can send something on a Friday night. In the old days, you wouldn't ask for a response till maybe a Monday morning. Now, you expect that if the person is sleeping, Saturday morning, they'll respond, acknowledge receipt and say, well, I'll look at this and I'll respond.
At least automated response,
Yeah.
at least to say,
to say, well, I have it.
Yes.
I'm on the road, I'm on a flight, I'm on vacation, but my assistant will pick this message up.
Right.
So all of these things, it's an interconnected world out there. And technology makes us more efficient, by the way. So,
can we talk about some of the groundbreaking transactions that you've been involved in?
Look, I've done lots of things.
Which is
the ones that come to mind?
Yes.
We were part of the MTN initial auction coming into Nigeria. The firm represented MTN through that auction, through MTN paying what looked like an impossible price in 2001, which today, when you look back 20 years,
that was quite. We were on the sidelines wondering if this was even possible.
Exactly.
Because it seemed like an impossible thing.
Exactly.
$280
million odd,
at the time.
and it happened, and it's worked, and you see the significant investment, and to be part of what I think of as a groundbreaking transaction, one which was a very transparent auction, made Nigeria look like a country that understood that you couldn't just issue licenses to your friends. Went through a bid process. Nobody complained that there were funny deals being done. And at the end of the bid, if you lost your deposit if you couldn't pay, and they moved on to the next person. So the reality of that process was that it was actually a thing of pride to be part of a process. That when you look back 20 years and you look at what telecommunications has done to Nigeria, a part of the system that's over 10% of GDP, from almost nothing. 400,000 lines at that time, and today you're talking 160 million cell phones. Those are significant achievements. So to have been there when it happened, for me, was a major. We did the original NLNG transactions, again to be part of trains 3 and 4 of that kind of development. When you look at the LNG company today, again, a global company with shareholders from around the world, but remains one of those kind of secrets that Nigerians don't pay attention to. In Bonny Island, that you can have a company that could be anywhere in the world and has efficiently done what it's meant to be doing, paying dividends to the Nigerian nation from reduced flaring of gas in the Niger Delta. Those kind of transactions are cutting edge. And you learn from them, and you always look at them as, this is what I set out to do, be part of the change that our country needs.
Do these transactions equate your career highlights as well?
I'd like to think so. I mean, I tell people that one of the funny things about democracy, when you get it right, is that prior to 1999, the only people that made money in Nigeria had to have had some relationship with government. Mm-hmm. Post 99, with the coming of democracy, the reality is that you then found almost self-made business people. And there were lots of transactions in the initial Obasanjo first term. Lots of things happened. It was an opening out of the marketplace. And so for me, yes, I'd been doing a lot of stuff before then, but actually that was a watershed moment of the firm just literally took off. And we were there doing the things that we wanted to do. But I think that on the whole, I also say this with respect to the arts. I think the return of democracy, what it also did was that Nigerian music, Nollywood, literature, the fine arts, it was almost a renaissance for all of us in the country. It was a great time to be Nigerian, and everything seemed to be, all you had to do was dream and work hard at it, and you could achieve it. And so it was, for me, they were extremely heady days, but they worked.
Yeah. In fact, to use the word renaissance is probably the best way to describe that era. Yeah. We took a left turn after that period. It has been down here.
Well, we're eternal optimists.
Yes.
So there's a view that which I subscribe to, that we just need to work hard and regain lost territory, and that's the hope and prayer.
Outside of legal profession,
yes.
Let's talk about leisure now and some of your personal indulgence. Is art one of them?
Oh, art is. I'm passionate about art. I'm passionate about. And not to mistake, I say it's an investment in the arts. I think it's important to support the arts. I think it's important to, to invest in it. I think that just as I talked about the renaissance of, so I, one of the things I do a lot of is I read a lot. I say to myself, look, you must be constantly learning. And one of the ways to learn, I never used to do audiobooks Used to carry physical books around. And then I discovered audiobooks and I said, oh my God, I wish I had done this earlier.
You can do 6 now.
No, it's, and it's so funny how the brain can essentially retain the important things such that you can refer to them. So reading, keeping up to speed with developments around the world is one of the things that I do a lot. Philanthropy is one of the things that I'm passionate about. I think in a society like ours, where you can see the gaps, the disconnect, it would be ridiculous to be successful in this society and not give back. Because then, what's it about? It has to be more than of self. And so for me, whether it's giving back in education or giving back, even in agriculture, and I say that to mean that we need to get away from this subsistence farming. The rest of the world has moved ahead in plantation farming, but we're still just, we think that farming has to be hard work. Well, by the way, everything is hard work, but you also have to do it in a mechanized way. You have to have smallholder schemes that will take local communities along so that they don't lose jobs, they don't lose land, which is all they have. But I think it's, there are different ways of intervention, and some of the more important things that I do today are all around philanthropy, sitting on boards that we're giving back, highlighting things that are important. I sit on a bunch of other boards where people say to me, why are you gravitating towards music, for instance? But I'm a great jazz lover.
I saw the Carnegie Hall thing.
So I sit on the Carnegie Hall board. I sit on the Jazz at the Lincoln Center board in New York. For me, those are things that growing up in a society where, as a young man, used to go to Fela at the Shrine. I think it's important to keep busy, but also with things that you're passionate about, so that it's not just about keeping busy. It's about looking for ways to rebuild the network, but also about the things that you enjoy doing.
Do you play any instrument?
On my bucket list. My bucket list has all kinds of instruments that I'm waiting,
Because as a jazz lover, you probably love the saxophone, but you've never had the time.
The saxophone and the piano. I say to myself that, look, these are things that it's important. I can't just, I love listening to music. I need to be able to play.
Do you have a favorite Nigerian musician among the young, call them the young Turks now?
You ask me a question that
that will offend.
One of the things this is a bit crazy. I'm in and out of the gym a lot, and I find that when I'm listening to particular musicians, I overdo. So they motivate me. From Wizkids to all, it's
a playlist. With Apple again, technology. With Apple, you can.
And it's a great time to be Nigerian and to be watching these musicians. Again, we talked about the Renaissance. It's a great time to see all of this coming out of the country.
Yes.
It's fantastic.
It's an amazing time for our arts. And the home sold for over £1 million, or about £1 million. So yes. It's been really nice talking to you. There are so many things that you are involved in. When you were talking about agriculture, I remember that you are on the board of Oghogho.
Yes, I've been chairman of Oghogho for many years. I tell people that my, I may come from Ekiti, but my second home is Ovia Southwest.
Okay, that's where
which is where the plantation is. The plantation is in Ovia.
My wife is an Ekiti woman.
Are you serious? Yes. So I come from Ekiti. And people.
So do you like pounded yam?
Oh my God. The fact that me and you are trying to keep fit is a problem. But no. And I spent 5 years of my life in Christ Ekiti. I went to Christ School,
yeah.
so I know the whole of that area extremely well.
So you're a proper homeboy.
Oh, I'm a homeboy.
Do you like Igbo people go home at Christmas?
You know, the funny thing about increasingly the roads are worse. It's taking you longer to get home. Security is also an issue. So the trips are a bit few and far between. But you know, my early years were in that environment. So my love for I tell people that the most rural parts of Nigeria are sometimes the most beautiful. The hills of Ekiti. As you drive around, I used to joke about how you'd stop on the road in driving Ekiti, and you'd ask, you'd see a farmer on his bike, pushing his bike. So you'd ask him in Yoruba that you're trying to get to Ilukweju Ekiti, and he would reply you in English, because actually the Ekitis just invested. The Action Group investment in education is why we think of excellence in education as the only thing that and so. I look back at those years with nostalgia.
Growing up in Midwest, Bendel, we thought it was just a myth. No. That's the whole Ondo and Ekiti thing that, you find 3 professors or 4 professors in one family.
I promise you, in my family, at the last count, there were 4 professors. Don't worry, I'm the only one that managed with. I got a second degree, but
you don't measure up.
I don't count how many PhDs we have.
Oh my God!
But very very typical of the families.
Before we leave, I must ask you. The law work can be sedentary as well. So long hours. How do you keep a healthy routine? Lawyers need to stay alive and well.
You know how you're young, you think you're invincible. You don't really need to do very much. Your body just reacts to you. As I got older, your body sends you signals of how it actually now needs help. And so I was not an exercise person when I was younger. But as I got into my 50s, I then started spending a bit more time in gyms. I traveled a lot. I packed a bag with me every time I went somewhere. I'm in and out of the gym these days easily 3 to 4 times a week. When I don't run, I ride a bike. I try and eat healthy. Food doesn't digest very well as you get older. But I think the moral of the story for me really is just that it's important to do the right things. Not necessarily as you go older.
Don't wait until you get.
Actually, what I tend to find is that I'm able to think better. I come out of the gym. Sometimes before I get into the office in the morning, I've done my 10,000 steps. Which is a great thing because you are full of energy and ready to go. So I think a healthy lifestyle is definitely a way to go.
Thank you very much. Thank you, and that's like a very good place to bring this.
My pleasure. Thank you.
So thank you very much.
Good to talk to you.
Thank you very much. Sadly, we have to go. This session has been a rewarding session with Gbenga Oyebode. His shoes might look a bit too big for young lawyers, but if you strive and be all you can be the best you can be at what you do, you probably will fill those shoes and even make bigger shoes for other generations of lawyers to come. Who is our next Big Wig? We'll find out on the next episode of The Big Wig. My name is Richard Mofe Damijo, and we are out.
Follow once again, I'm a big wig. Yeah. I need to run things up. Yeah. We're making great moves, big moves. Yeah. Pam. I'm a lawyer. I love the practice. So my daily moves, nothing but magic. I'm a lawyer, but I don't even go to court. My daily moves, Nothing but magic, oh. Nothing but magic, oh. Listen, a lawyer can be creative. It can even make you a native. A lawyer can rap or sing.